Morning true, Dabanamona, and welcome everybody to PNG Boardroom, the regular series of online live stream briefings brought to you by Business Advantage PNG, PNG's leading online business magazine. My name is Andrew Wilkins. I'm the Publishing Director of Business Advantage International, and I'm going to be your host this morning to talk about the business outlook for Papua New Guinea in 2022. Welcome everybody, no matter where you are in the world this morning. Now, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor for this morning's event, which is Monier. Monier's support for this online event is enabling us to bring it to you free of charge. So our sincere thanks to Monier. Couple of pieces of housekeeping. Your Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, it can be used to talk to us during today's event, so please make use of that if you want to make a comment or ask a question of our guests. And the other thing is that this event is being recorded, so we'll send you an alert after the event to tell you how to access that recording as well. A couple of announcements. The 2022 Papua New Guinea Investment Conference is on 15th and 16th of August this year. We're very much hoping to bring you a face-to-face event in Brisbane. The location and details about the event will be announced in coming weeks and months, but you can register your interest in attending the event now by going to pnginvestmentconference.com. If your business is interested in sponsoring or partnering with the event, now's the time to get in touch. You can do so by emailing us at events@businessadvantageinternational.com. That's events@businessadvantageinternational.com. Finally, before we start, PNG Now, PNG's leading lifestyle magazine, the new February-March issue is out from next week, sporting the magnificent Justin Olam on the cover. There's a feature interview with the rugby league champion inside the magazine, which was taken at his training ground with Melbourne Storm. So something to look out for coming to cafes and hospitality spots in Port Moresby and Lae from next week. Now on to the business today, and we're going to be discussing the potential outlook for business this year with three very special guests. They are Hulala Tokome, who's the country manager and director of Puma Energy, which of course is the largest importer of oil into PNG and also the only organisation that refines petroleum in the country. We're also going to be talking to Lars Mortensen of JMP Securities, one of only two licensed stockbrokers in PNG. And finally, we're going to be getting an update on the building and construction sector from George Constantinou, who is the managing director of Hebou Constructions and the CEO of Monier, the building supplies company in PNG, both of course part of the Constantinou group of companies. So we're going to be talking about financial markets, travel restrictions, major resources projects with Lars shortly, and then the outlook for the building and construction sector. But first, let's talk about fuel, foreign exchange, and PNG's national elections, which of course are due in June this year. So I spoke to Hulala Tokome a little earlier today, and the first question I asked him was about the rising oil price, which is nudging perilously close to $100 a barrel, which is the highest levels we've seen since 2014. What impact on PNG is this going to have, and how long will this price rise last?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the move up in oil prices is being felt around the world. The physical market is tight as stocks of crude and diesel are drawing to the lows of the seasonal range, and OPEC continues to underperform versus the crude production quotas adding to tight supply. What's also been evident is that also the rapid decline in COVID cases leading to strong pent-up demand, and crude production below expectations will continue to drive prices higher in the long term. The Russia and the Ukraine tensions also don't continue to support the market as well. So yes, the oil price continues to rise. The impact it will have on our business, One thing is also on the Forex piece, but at the same time, the same period last year during the surge in the Delta variant, oil prices were at a low compared to today, heading towards the $100 mark. So yes, it's being felt by our customers, and at the same time, it's having a huge impact on our business as well, especially in terms of requiring foreign exchange to purchase crude.
And I guess also, given you're the major supplier of aviation fuel in the country as well, it's going to impact not just road transportation, but also aviation as well.
That is correct, yeah. And you know, I think there was a period of time where the oil price went above the $100 mark a number of years ago, and the aviation or the airline industry were also putting surcharges on ticket prices as well. So yeah, that particular impact is most likely to come around as well. I mean, I'm hopefully not going to be putting words into the aviation industry or the people from our local airline industry, but it's bound to happen, especially where crude prices are heading towards.
Do you, I mean, from I guess Puma is an international company, and you must do a lot of forecasting on this. From what you know, or what you're knowing from your international contacts, do people think this is a short-term bounce back in the price, or do you think it is something that's going to be sitting in here for the full year and maybe into next year as well?
Yeah, probably not for the full year, but for the short to medium term, yes. Our people have basically forecasted that price, the crude price is pretty much heading in that particular direction, and it's more towards where the demand for crude has been, you know, in terms of pushing the barrel upwards, and you know, it doesn't help when we've got you've got these particular tensions especially between Russia and Ukraine. So it's bound to be in place or surge a bit, and especially coming March as well, where prices will probably continue to be at this particular mark, where what we call import parity pricing in PNG will continue to be at. Coming back locally, we've seen the price of fuel jump up by nearly 50 toya per litre just over the last couple of months. And I think the thing is, most likely it will jump up by another 15 to 20 toya per litre in March again. So it's for the average consumer, for people, the businesses who depend on a lot of our fuel, it's not good for them, and it's not also good for us as well, because especially where the price of crude is at, we're not able to get the FX that is required in the market to in order to pay for our invoices or pay for our crude supplies.
Well, we're on the topic of foreign exchange. Puma Energy is one of the country's largest purchasers of foreign exchange. You're bringing in fuel into the country, and there's a large expense involved in that, and that needs to be paid in US dollars. How are you finding the FX situation as far as availability is concerned? Is it improving, do you think, or is it staying the same? What and where do you think it might be turning? This is obviously something that a lot of businesses are concerned about.
Yeah, that is correct, Andrew. I think, and thank you for asking this question, as it is having a huge impact on our business. We're producing the same amount of product as we were last year, but the external forces, like I mentioned earlier, where the price of crude oil has gone, and it's pushing towards the $100 mark as of today. And this is having a huge impact as we're not getting the required foreign currency within the market on commercial flows. And also the intervention from the central bank that is coming through. Obviously, there are others within the market that also require FX. But, for us, and we've had these conversations with the central bank. We've also had this conversation. In fact, I completed this in terms of having these particular discussions with all the CEOs of the banks in country in PNG. And we can't continue to sustain our business operations if we're not able to pay for the crude that we bring in to refine. So we're at that particular point, and it's one of our we're at a critical point right now where we, especially with the barrel prices at, we're not able to satisfy our FX requirements in terms of paying for crude. So it is at at a critical point for us, and we can't continue to sustain that. By the end of this month, we'll be making some critical decisions in terms of what next for us in the market.
Does that mean maybe cutting back on supply?
Inevitably, that may mean that, but we wouldn't want to go down that particular path. We want to make sure that we continue to maintain supply in country, but especially where we're not able to get the FX that is required for our business. Obviously, there are certain elements that do need to give, and that's why we've been heavily engaged with all stakeholders in the market in terms of being able to make that happen.
Yep. While we're talking about your operations, Hulala, you're the only refinery in the country at Napa Napa, and you have made some statements publicly about your concerns with some measures that have been introduced by government recently, specifically the tariff on imported refined fuel. Can you maybe just outline what your argument is in that area and what your concern is as far as how it might affect your operations in PNG? Because there may be some misunderstanding about exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, sure. And it's a good point that you've raised, and a good question that you've asked. I think the government reduced the tariff on imported fuel, half that for 2022. At the end of the day, for us, we're continually, reviewing our business model, whether to continue maintaining our operations at the refinery, or if there is a sweet spot for us to do a combination of both imported plus continue to run the refinery. And with these changes and what we implement, this is a continual review that we look at, and especially where the government puts these particular measures in place. It's always us reviewing that on a yearly basis in terms of just making sure that however we go about and doing things in the market, we're able to ensure that our business operations, we continue to maximize the output of our business operations and maintaining a profitable business operation, for us as well. So
sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to ask you, I mean, you have announced plans to expand Napa Napa and refurbish as well. Are those plans still in place, or have they been pushed further down the track a little bit because of this current situation?
For us, being able to have a refinery that can be able to and being able to produce an output of cleaner fuels within the market as well, that's important. However, there's also an impact on the return on the investment that, if we're able to do that, then this is where the tariffs come into play, and then being able to also provide a investment platform for us to being able to get that return, like I mentioned earlier. But then at the same time, being able to deliver what is expected, and also what the government also wants us to, having its refinery on shore and the supply security as well on shore. So, there are those particular elements, and we've had those conversations with government as well in terms of how best to push in terms of whether the government sees that as a positive, or whether we change our business model to something that we can be able to capitalize on the recent changes that the government has also gone and done with regards to imported fuel. So. Yeah, I mean, it's something that we continue to engage with government on, and being able to see how best we can be able to maintain our business operations in country. But more importantly, quality fuel in the market, and at the same time making sure that we future-proof our business going forward.
Talking of your business going forward, when we've talked previously, Hulala, you mentioned the need to change your business model in PNG and become more of a one-stop shop for energy and a greater mix of opportunities to sell to customers. How is that project progressing, and what are your next steps?
Yeah, so our next steps from the last conversation that we had, we were very much aligned with PPL's or PNG Power's push to also look at how best an integrated model with businesses would be able to look at how these particular different models do work in other countries and bringing it on shore. And I think this was all part of the reforms which were also pushed by the previous CEO for PPL. And since his removal, I think the thing is those particular reforms have pretty much slowed down for us. So what we have done, rather than pushing this out into our market, we have more focused on our internal business. So being able to, so what we've done there is implemented renewables or solar energy into 2 of our terminal facilities, and we are progressing that as well now with the refinery. So this is an exciting piece for us in transforming our business model. And then rather than having this pushed out to the market, we are focusing on our internal business and making sure that these particular future energies type of deliverables are working within our business as well. So that's been the focus now for us. I mean, we've just had to shift gears as a result of things slowing down on the other side with PPL. So that's where we've been able to change our business model to focus on our internal business rather than the external customer base. So, so we've done that now with 2 of our terminals, like I mentioned earlier, and we are now pushing this into our refinery as well.
I guess all energy companies all over the world are starting to conduct this transition, aren't they, to a greener future? I noticed the other day ExxonMobil was announcing that they've got 2050 target. Does Puma have a similar target?
Yeah, so Puma has got a similar target. So not only in PNG have we done this, we've done this in other parts of the world as well. So, and therefore there's a strong push for us to get into this renewables energy. And like I've mentioned, we've started off with our terminal facilities, 2 of our terminal facilities. We're having this done with our refinery, and then we will also be doing this with, in terms of this renewable energy for our retail sites as well. So it's high on the agenda for us to ensure that we've got this renewable energy within our facilities.
Excellent. I didn't want to let you go without asking you about the elections. I didn't want to ask you about politics because that might get you into trouble, and we want to avoid that. But elections in PNG are quite extraordinary as a social phenomenon, aren't they? They're something that the entire community participates in, and it's a very colourful time. I understand from retailers it's also a great time for them to be selling loud hailers, because there's a lot of very traditional style of electioneering that goes on in PNG out in the community. But looking at the expectations for what the impact of the elections might be this year, based on your experience, what should we expect from an election year in PNG as far as business is concerned? What sort of impact do you see?
I think for us, and I'll speak more so from Puma Energy, because we get heavily involved in the election year, and that's why we remain optimistic that the election year, which we get involved in supporting the election and supplying much needed fuel and lubricants for the operations, and in particular the disciplined forces in carrying out their responsibilities. There's already been a number of engagements with the disciplined forces, and especially what in terms of the planning piece as well. So there's that particular involvement that has already taken place, and then ensuring that we have covered and have supply availability throughout the country. For us, we would also welcome much talked about new projects that a lot has been mentioned about.
These are the resources projects, particularly. Papua LNG, Wafi-Golpu, Pyongyang, yes.
That's correct, and there's been a lot of mention about them, but they do need to commence, and this will also help bring in much needed dollars and help lift the economy as well as job creation for thousands of people. So for us, we remain optimistic in that particular area, that those particular projects, yes, it is an election year, but at the same time, being able to drive those particular resource projects to really kick off as well.
Our thanks to Hulala Tokome for his time today. Our next speaker is Lars Mortensen, the Managing Director of JMP Securities, a financial advisor, but also, importantly, one of only 2 licensed stockbrokers on the PNG stock market. So welcome, Lars, this morning. Lars, Hulala's talked about the major resources projects and the sense of expectation that we all have around them. Where do we currently stand with projects such as Papua LNG, Penyang, Wafi-Golpu, as we stand today, and what should our realistic expectations be, do you think, of their progress?
I think, it's a continuum. There's a number of projects, and some of them are progressing faster than others. I think the general sentiment should be that one of calm optimism, cautious optimism. There's been, I would say, significant progress made on a couple of them. I would say my instinct and the market sources tell me that progress is getting close now to the finalization of what I would describe as the documentary backdrop to the restarting of the mine. There's a number of steps to this. Obviously, get the agreements in place, get the landowners squared away, and then start the rebuild of the mine, and then start production. So let's not get carried away. But I get a sense that it is now within the party's control to finish it off, whatever that means. I'm quite optimistic that Papua LNG will be progressing into the feed stage during the course of this year. Don't pin me down to a date, but I think we should all consider that to be a very, very likely next step. And we should bear in mind that these types of projects typically don't go into feed unless they're comfortable that they're going to go into FID and subsequent construction. So we should be optimistic without dancing in the streets on that one, and the timing will be a little bit sensitive. The conversations around Penyang. Penyang is a much longer dated project, so the economic impact of Penyang isn't nearly as important as I think is the fact that it fits in the broader framework of the Papua project and how we coordinate and stagger the development of those projects. Wafi-Golpu, again, that's probably not really going to progress too much until after the election, but that's just a private observation. I think but it's also good to stagger these things. I think there's enough there going on. And then I think what these projects will really do in a 2022 context is they ought to drive optimism around the pipeline of economic activity, more so than us expecting a flood of activity as soon as things are announced.
It's about confidence. It's about
exactly
confidence.
Right. Confidence. Yeah. Businesses will start to plan and invest. So that's probably what they will be a catalyst for.
And I think the last I heard before the mining conference before Christmas was the final investment decision at the end of next year for Papua LNG. I think that was what Jean-Marc Noire was saying then. So that sounds like he's reasonably positive that things are underway, because they have been quiet for a couple of years, haven't they?
Indeed, and I think market conditions are good. I think slowly but surely they're whittling away project uncertainties. They're redesigning some of the technical solutions. I think we can't commit Total or Exxon or anyone to anything, but we are optimistic that there is continual progress in relation to that project.
Let's talk about travel restrictions. We had some big news over the last few days related first of all to Australia last week, and this week to Papua New Guinea, about the opening of the borders to international tourists again. What sort of impact do you expect that to be in the economy this year?
Well, I think at the general level, I think the opening of borders, the gradual normalization of travel is critical. And it has to happen, and subject to medical advice and medical issues, the faster it happens, the better. The fact that we're now getting the sort of news that we're looking for, which is a pathway to opening or an actual opening, I think is very positive. Insofar as the tourism sector, I don't necessarily think that there's going to be a rapid return to that market. I think those that rely heavily on international tourism are still in for a bit of a torrid ride. But I think the positive to start with, obviously, number one positive is for the mobility of Papua New Guineans who have international educational and business needs. I think the needs of international business who have been starved of face-to-face contact with government, with associates, clients, and suppliers, all of that stuff will allow us to gradually, slowly return towards something that smells like normal.
Yeah, certainly the tourism sector in particular. I think there's been figures out that say that of all the industry sectors in Papua New Guinea, that's the one that's been most badly affected as a percentage of drop in revenue. So it is welcome news, is it not?
Yes.
Let's talk about the financial markets now, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Bank of PNG. But before we start with that, you're obviously a very close watcher of stock markets, capital markets in PNG and around the world. At the end of last year, we had a pretty momentous event on Papua New Guinea's stock exchange, the PNGX, which was the listing of Santos and the replacement of Santos shares with Oil Search shares. What's your sense of how significant that move is? Because Santos has really ramped up its presence in Papua New Guinea as a result of acquiring Oil Search shares, has it not?
Absolutely. And it was very significant, obviously, as a market participant. It was very significant for some micro reasons, but there's also some macro reasons why it's very important. At the micro level, it is very important that Papua New Guineans have an opportunity to be invested in companies and operators and participants in their local economy. So the threat of Oil Search merging into Santos and Oil Search disappearing from the PNG capital markets, there was a risk there that you'd see 5,000 to 6,000 Papua New Guinean shareholders stranded with no market on which to sell their shares. So obviously from a micro perspective, that's great that that's been resolved. I think from a macro perspective, I think it was good to see the government be very deliberate about how they approached this in their discussions with Santos. That we felt that was very strongly supportive of the capital markets and what I think each of us that are participating in those markets are trying to achieve. And so we're very pleased that the government came out strongly on that. Santos met them wholeheartedly. And what it does, it sends a very strong signal, I think, that of confidence in the regulatory framework, in confidence in the market, in confidence in all of the elements that may, that it'll take us time to continue to spread to the wider global market about capital markets in PNG. But certainly well done on the part of Santos and also well done on the part of PNG government to not let that disappear in the merger conversation.
It's interesting that Santos is just one of a number of major cashed up international businesses that are starting to show more interest in Papua New Guinea. And I guess we can add to that list Telstra in the area of telecommunications. We can also add Fortescue Metals Group, who through their Fortescue Future Industries is looking around for renewable resources projects in PNG. What does it say about PNG that at the moment we're getting these large players looking to set up here and do business here?
Well, I mean, it's quite clear that in a number of industries, and in particular in the Asia-Pacific region, Papua New Guinea is very well placed in terms of the resources we have, the proximity to markets, our track record, I would say, in delivering on very large-scale projects, PNG LNG being one, and no doubt Papua LNG and others will be there. So it's on the one hand, it's great to see because it means external forces are driving them towards PNG. I think we should also be confident in saying that slowly but surely we're also providing for them an environment in which they can invest. So I think that's a very positive way to look at that.
Lars, one of the issues in the last couple of years that's kind of held back the capital markets development in Papua New Guinea has been some of the legal issues surrounding the Securities Commission in PNG. Touch wood, some of those issues are starting to get resolved now, and we seem to have more clarity about how the Securities Commission is going to be run in future and what its relationship is going to be with the stock exchange. What would you expect, therefore, this year as far as innovation in capital markets in PNG, or what would you hope for?
Look, I think 2021 was a major catalyst year in terms of driving out some of the key uncertainties in the capital markets. So we now have all the clarity, in a sense, we need at the Securities Commission. We have a very supportive chairman of the commission. We have a great working relationship between the PNGX, the market, and the commission. So we're very well placed. In terms of innovations, I would venture to say that the participants in the market, before we innovate too much, should be delivering on some of the things that have already been established in other markets. So I think what your audience should hold us to is that we've got to deepen the market. We've got to deepen the pool of assets that people can invest in. You should hold us to pulling off 1, 2, 3, however many IPOs this year, then you should hold us to engaging with companies that are, for example, listed in Australia, to talking to them about the benefits of mirroring Santos's dual listing process. Quietly, we'll no doubt be working on innovative ways of doing business. But I think what we really need in the short term is to start delivering on business as usual in international markets, and that's really what we all focus on. Technological innovation, yes. But again, some of that is quiet, and you don't really know it. It just subtly things improve, and I hope that's the case. But really, we should be broadening the market, making it easier for companies that are already listed to raise money, making it easier for investors to understand and access the markets, communicate better. All of that stuff is probably not innovation; it's probably more doing better.
We have, as you say, we have some whisperings about potential listings on PNGX. No names yet?
No, but PNG is a small place. I'm sure half your audience already knows who's thinking about it. But no names that no one has reached the point at which they're prepared to talk about it, let's say.
Fair enough. I want to talk about the banking system in PNG. At the end of last year, the PNG government introduced an inquiry into the Bank of PNG and how it's conducting itself. And there has been a change of guard at the top of that organisation, which is being disputed legally at this stage as we talk. I'm wondering what you see as potentially the risks or potential benefits of reorganising the Bank of PNG. Obviously, monetary policy is set by the central bank and the control of foreign exchange and so forth. So what do you see as possibly the risks or benefits that might come from that process?
Well, it's I think that without looking too much at the organizational elements to that, so how BPNG is structured and who runs it and exactly how they run it, I think what everyone should also be thinking about is the conversations around monetary policy objectives. So the existing monetary policy objective up until recently has been purely inflation, controlling inflation. And using exchange rate as a heavy tool to control inflation, which is in part why we've seen a very stable US dollar exchange rate and that sort of thing. The conversation now is sort of has been looking at the extent to which that heavy inflation focus on inflation has been an inhibition on growth. And so I think the conversation is shifting in a direction of saying, should the monetary policy objectives be twofold? Control of inflation as a necessary part of all monetary policy framework. At the same time, balancing that out with not inhibiting growth. And I think having that conversation, I don't want to land on any side on this forum, but having that conversation, I think, is actually quite valuable. There are costs to controlling inflation at all costs, so to speak.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, the Bank of PNG does is regulate the banking sector. And we've had a number of organisations that have expressed interest in getting a banking licence to compete with BSP and Kina Bank. And we also had, of course, the failed takeover of Kina Bank, of Westpac last year by Kina Bank. So what would you see the prospects for more competition in the banking sector than we've got at the moment?
There are certainly a number of parties that are looking at entering that market. As an industry observer and a sectoral observer, I would say obviously that needs to be tempered with the fact that banking is about scale. It is difficult to replicate what some of the existing players are doing from a startup position. So people, hence obviously others are contemplating acquisitions and how do we enter the market? How do we get scale quickly? It's problematic in a sense to have a market that's so dominated by BSP, but BSP is a well-run and very profitable organization and very well capitalized. So the systemic risk is reduced somewhat by the fact that it's a well-run business. But competition is good for everyone. Again, banking sounds very sexy, but actually it's quite hard work.
Well, that's a sentence I wasn't expecting to hear this morning. Banking is rather sexy. I've got a couple of questions for you, Lars, from our audience, if that's all right. This question is about the dominant player levy that's the government's announced. It's going to effectively a super tax on BSP and Digicel's operations in PNG. What's your prediction, asked Daryl, for the dominant player levy? Do you think it will be dropped, modified or enforced, depending on the election results, I guess, in June this year?
Oh, that's we're getting very close to politics on that. Let me make the general observation that it's a very risky tax structure, and this is purely from the point of view of investors in companies such as Bank South Pacific and Digicel. That it comes out of left field. It seems to be very ad hoc. It seems to target specific investors, and the concern you'd have from a sovereign risk perspective is that it can be it's very tempting to think that as, for example, profitability increases, the levy goes up, and therefore what we've really decided is to run at a differential tax rate for certain players. Now that's on the risk side. On the flip side is nobody likes industries that are monopolistic or oligopolistic. So there is always the risk for what we would describe as supernormal profits. Is it going to survive? My suspicion is that it'll be modified, that there'll be the fact that it's so patently targeted to named companies, so to speak, will probably be modified to find a way to make it less accretive to sovereign risk perceptions, if I can put it that way.
Noted. Very diplomatically put, Lars. Well done. That other question, this is from Richard Busby. What will the Bank of PNG reforms mean for SMEs in PNG?
I mean, a longer exposition on that point might come up with some salient point, but my general sense is that central banking has a modest impact on SMEs. Other than if there is a shift to a monetary policy that mixes growth and inflation protection against inflation, that may result in a wider policy framework that is conducive to investment, which in turn makes it better for business across all sectors. I don't think there's a lot in the SME in the central banking reform specifically for SMEs, if I can put it that way.
Okay. And somebody was also just quickly saying, what do we know about when feed might start for Papua LNG?
We each of us have got our own individual guesses. So we take all the data points and all the coffees we have, and we calibrate that, and we make a guess, and we'll make for an excellent tipping competition.
Our next segment is a regular one we call the Inside View. This is where we get a business leader from a particular sector of PNG's economy to talk about their sector. This edition, we're talking about the building and construction sector with George Constantinou, the Managing Director of Hebou Constructions and the CEO of Monier, the building supplies company. Now, my first question to George was about the expected rise in construction activity as a result of the PNG's announced funding for the Connect PNG road building project and also the upgrade of PNG's ports.
To be honest, it's a very exciting time in the civil construction headspace, or just in the construction sector. As probably most of the audience would know, is that the infrastructure spending has been quite healthy, and with the Connect PNG road infrastructure rollout. So I don't think you'd have to be living under a rock not to hear about that. And then on the other side, you've got the PNG Ports Corporation facility upgrades, and that there's been I guess again you'd have to be living under a rock not to hear about that either. So yeah, with both though, from a I guess a government point of view, those two I guess rollouts will be quite important for the next 20 years, I guess, and so I guess from our side, we're excited to be in this headspace, and we're hoping to be actively participating in it, as with I guess most other companies in who we compete against and compete with. So yeah, it's been pretty good, but at the moment we're currently involved in the reconstruction of the Motor Kia International Terminal hard sand reconstruction project. We're coming to about the halfway point now. on the delivery, and we're focused on delivering the project on time, within budget, and to the highest quality. And from my understanding from dealing with the PNG ports and the project team, that we're on a good step to deliver it and make everyone happy, hopefully. So we'll just have to wait and see. But as for the PNG Connect, I know the Connect PNG, I personally believe that it's a positive move for the country, and it will create a long-lasting legacy, I guess. And to my understanding, the Connect PNG road infrastructure program, they passed a bill in 2021 in November, I believe, and that will allow for, in my opinion, a stable rollout, so that they can get the adequate funding, so that if there is a change of government, this important infrastructure, I believe, will be able to roll out effectively. I guess over the recent weeks, there's been a number of major projects been awarded to a number of contractors, so there's going to be a lot of mobilisation there before the elections, and a number of tenders, to my understanding, will be released. So we're actively seeking out to participate on those tenders and be a part of the PNG Connect PNG rollout. So fingers crossed, it should be all good.
It's good to see the actual announcements from government turning into tenders. That's what you want to see.
That's 100% right. So it's really positive. It's a good space to be in, and I'm really happy that it's actually coming to fruition, and there is a rollout there.
Good stuff. Last time we spoke, George, you mentioned that you were planning to bring a couple of businesses together within your group, which was Polyallied Products and Monier. Has that taken place, and what was the thinking behind that particular move?
Yes, well, to start off, that has taken place. We did that. We started that process beginning of last year and finalised it. So I guess for just take a step back, I guess Polyallied Products, they were pretty much a water tanks, septic tanks, and polyurethane pipe manufacturer, distributor, supplier within PNG, and pretty much supported the PNG market. We amalgamated the two brands, so Monier ended up taking over Polyallied, mainly because there was a couple of reasons for that. The first reason was streamlining the internal processes, because we had probably a double up of positions, and there wasn't as much efficiencies there. So when I started looking at the businesses, I just said, well, you could probably streamline, reduce costs, and smooth out a couple of inconsistencies there. And so we went through that process, and it has worked. What we also did is we do know that I guess Monier has a pretty strong branding and recognition in Papua New Guinea. So we wanted to, I guess associate Polyallied, or the plastics division, or the water tanks division, with Monier, and we created essentially a new brand called Monier Water Solutions, but it's simply a department of Monier. And to bolster onto that, Monier's the whole program, the whole company's ISO rated, so and Polyallied wasn't. So what we did is now as we amalgamated the two brands, the two companies, and we've increased the standards, increased the processes, and it obviously gets audited in the same processes and mannerisms as Monier. So we just wanted to take it to that next level, and I guess make a point of that. I guess whatever we do, we do it for quality, and with the ISO, I guess, rating behind Monier Water Solutions, it was adopting a really, I believe, just a positive way forward anyway.
What plans do you have for the next 12 months, or do you have any plans to make any changes to either company or to any of those structures, or to introduce new products and services?
Nothing too significant at this stage. There's no significant changes, no monumental shifts for either Hebou Constructions or Monier. I guess at Monier, what we have done is we've added in a full service mobile department since over the last probably 6 to 8 months. So we had an existing mobile crushing and screening units, a mobile batch plant, but we've also acquired a mobile testing laboratory. So that would mean that Monier can now move from location to location, project specific, and allow, I guess, Monier to deliver the whole range. Well, it's essentially Monier, because it's obviously we're based at 6 Mile in Port Moresby, but now we can move around Papua New Guinea to deliver high quality products. And I'm quietly confident that because we've got the personnel who can actually use those equipments effectively and deliver it. So yeah, no, that's one of the main things that we've done over recent months at Monier. For Hebou Constructions, we're still focusing on road constructions and ports, airports, reconstruction projects, and we've obviously moved into the seaports construction projects as well. But we're also looking at going into the mining headspace in terms of seeing how we can assist in, I guess, with the mining projects in terms of delivery of roads or anything that they may need, and because we do have the team to deliver it, and we're just wanting to see what else is out there, because we obviously know that there's a lot of activity going on in pretty much all the different areas. So we're just seeing what's out there and seeing what we can assist with.
I guess one of the things about your sector's building and construction is very much a canary in the coal mine, isn't it, for the rest of the economy? If you're going well, if people are making building decisions and making purchasing decisions for building and construction, it indicates the economy's on the move. Well, where do you think the opportunities are for your sector in the medium to long term? Where do you see the growth coming from?
In the construction sector, I see exponential growth within PNG, and I've said that before. As I pretty much outlined, it was the Connect PNG, PNG ports, but and going on from that, the mining, oil and gas projects will definitely have a significant impact, like with the likes of I guess Simberi Mine, Pogoro, Total, Wafi. I believe that a lot of these they're not right now, but they're not far off. So it's not short term. It's probably medium and long term. And I guess for us, it's a good space. Well, not just for us, for anyone in the construction industry. It's a good space to have a look at and see if they can compete in that area. So it's definitely going to be quite an interesting space, I guess. With the government getting funding from of a number of infrastructure projects through the PNG government, the Asian development banks and JICA, and the Australian government and Chinese government as well, it'll obviously support the nation in the long term, and I believe it's going to be better for Papua New Guinea in general.
Fantastic. George, it sounds like your work's cut out for a very busy year. Good luck with it all, and good luck with going for those tenders. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
And our thanks there to George Constantinou. That's it for today. So also our thanks to Hulala Tokome from Puma Energy, and also to Lars Mortensen from JMP Securities for their time this morning. And thank you too for joining us today. Before we close, just to thank again our special sponsor for this morning's event, Monier. Our thanks to them for making this available to all of us. And just a reminder of a couple of things we mentioned at the beginning of the session, and that is that the 2022 Papua New Guinea Investment Conference is on the 15th and 16th of August, and you can see information at the address on your screen. Finally, PNG Now, PNG's favourite lifestyle magazine, is out from next week, the February-March issue, so look out for that around Port Moresby and Lae as well. Well, this event has been brought to you by Business Advantage PNG, PNG's leading online business magazine. To keep up to date, go to businessadvantagepng.com, or you can catch us on the socials as well. That's it for this morning. I hope you found it stimulating and informative. We'll see you next time for the next edition of PNG Boardroom. Until next time, please stay COVID safe and may your business have the advantage. Good morning.